with tomorrow at sunset, ushering in the final celebration of Shabuah before the Harvest of Sevens, the following year on May 22nd, 2026. We thought we'd do a second program today on Qatsyr harvest as we celebrate this marvelous day that God has included in his annual celebration of the relationship. For those who may not be totally familiar, that menorah over my left shoulder explains the position of Shabuah. It is in the midst of the 3 spring Mikre and the 3 fall Moedim. The spring Mikre have been fulfilled in year 4000 Yah by Dod, the actual Messiah and Son of God. He served as the Passover lamb. His soul then carried our guilt into Sheol to deposit it there. And the Bakor, the firstborn son of Yahowah, ushered in the opportunity for us to be Bakurim, firstborn children of Yahowah. All in 33 CE, year 4000 Yah. Shabuah is a Bakurim harvest, which means that those who are gathered from earth to heaven on the fulfillment of Shabuah will be the beneficiaries of what Father and Son, Dod and Yahowah, accomplished now almost 2,000 years ago. And it is a harvest of wheats, which means that there are a variety of different types of individuals that will be included in this gathering, both Israelites and Goyim. It will include young and old, men and women, from many different walks of life and different places, all with things in common. They will all celebrate Yahweh's name and acknowledge his name. They will all be members of the covenant, having accepted the conditions of the covenant. They will all observe the Moed Mikre, understanding each of the 7 celebrations that Yahowah has invited us to attend. They will all recognize Dod as their Messiah and the Son of God. These are the prerequisites, if you will, for participating. And just as that menorah had 3 spring Mikre, invitations to meet with God, that come before the Siddur candle representing Shabuah, there are 3 fall Moedim, and they are Towrah, which is the day of the herald, Yom Kippurim, the day of reconciliations, and Sukkah, where we return to the conditions experienced in Eden and camp out with our God. Now, if we are to continue with where we left off in our last program just an hour or so ago, we realize that those who have accepted these conditions, the conditions of the Bereth, of which there are 5, we walk away from the influence of religion and politics, from the Babel of society and the family of man, and we walk to God to allow him to perfect us. We trust and rely upon Yahowah, and we closely examine and carefully consider the terms of this covenant relationship. And as a sign that we have accepted that covenant, men are to be circumcised, and as parents, we circumcise our sons on the 8th day. These are the conditions of the covenant. The 5 benefits are all fulfilled through the first 3 Moed Mikre, which is why Dod honored those promises nearly 2,000 years ago with Pesach, providing life, matzah, enabling our perfection, Bakurim, adopting us into the covenant family and enriching and empowering us. This is what God has in store for us. So for those who have accepted the conditions of the Bereth, who have attended Yahweh's Mikre, as I have just outlined them, and who are guided by his Torah teaching, will all have a ringside seat for the great awakening. And it's going to play out in successive events during the commencement of the conclusion of the time of Jacob's troubles. And that is a traumatic period that is not only introduced in the 30th chapter of Yirmiyah, but also through the prophet Yoel, and underscored as well by Yeshaya, Isaiah. But for now, I want for us to mark our calendars, because we're going to meet Elia, and Yada is going to return with him on the 4th of April, 2030, which is year 5997, the first day of that year. And we're going to serve under Dode's instructions during the final 3.5 years, addressing the times, and half a time reference at the conclusion of Daniel to prepare Israel for Yahweh, such that he can restore his relationship with Israel, because Israel finally listens and comes home. Now, that story is told in the 31st chapter of Yirmiyah, as well as in Yeshaya, Zechariah, and Malachi. Let's consider that now. This begins the word which to reveal the way to enjoy the benefits of the relationship came to exist with Yirmiyah. Yirmiyah is Yah raises and lifts up. Yahweh teaches and guides, especially to respect and revere Yah, commonly transliterated Jeremiah. From Yahweh, that is the Almighty's proper designation, pronounced as instructed by his Torah guidance on his Haya existence and his role in our Shalom, reconciliation, as our Eloah, God. To announce, this is what Yahweh, the God of Israel, proclaims, so as to declare of your own volition, write all of these words which lead to the proper path to get the most out of life that I have and will be speaking to you about, so that they appear in a written document such that there is a permanent record. Because indeed, behold, a time is coming, prophetically reveals Yahweh, when I will return and I will restore the property and possessions taken during the oppression of my people, Yisrael, individuals who engage and endure with God and with Yahudah, the beloved of Yah, declares Yahweh. And then I will return and I will bring them back to the land that for the benefit of the relationship I gave to their fathers, and they will receive it as their inheritance. These are the words which to reveal the way Yahweh spoke concerning Israel and to Yahudah. This is what Yahweh conveyed as we heard the sounds of concern over the terrorists and terrorism, when there were no prospects of reconciliation or peace. This is Jeremiah. Yahweh raises up 31 through 5. Before we press on, let's just consider what insights we can glean from what has been said so far. First, word is from Debar. That is the message that is communicated by God, and it is communicated to the prophet orally and written down by him so that it is communicated in writing to us. He is conveying this, Asher, for the benefit of the relationship and so that we can get the most enjoyment out of life. It came to be. It existed with Haya, Yirmiyah. So many of Yahweh's prophets share Yahweh's name in theirs. Yirmiyah is a great example, as was Yeshaya, as is Zechariah. It's important for us to recognize that their names were pronounceable. And so, therefore, so is Yahowah's, which comprised their name. This is from Yahowah, and it is to announce that Yahowah, there's God's name again. So, to write God's name out of his testimony, as the rabbis have done, as the Christians have done, as the Muslims have done. Well, you can't really say the Muslims have written Yahowah out of his testimony, because the Quran is really a botched job of plagiarism, where they took Talmud stories from the rabbis and wrote Allah into the script from the Talmud stories that had been read to them. But the Christian New Testament does a really bad job of plagiarizing the prophets, always taking the statement out of context, always misconstruing it, always misstating it, and deriving the opposite intent from it. But in Judaism, there really is no excuse. They just simply wrote Yahowah's name out of his testimony and wrote Yahowah out of their lives. Nevertheless, this is what Yahowah, the God of Israel. Israel can mean one of two things. It's either those who have struggled against God, or those who engage and endure with God. It is based on Yish, an individual, Sarah, who is the mother of the covenant, and El, God. Proclaim so as to declare of your own volition right. It's always subject to free will, but God wanted his prophet to write this down, because until very recently, the written text was vastly superior to that which was oral. You know, if you look at the difference between the testimony of Yahowah from the Torah, prophets, and Psalms, which everything was written immediately upon its revelation, whereas you have in the Christian New Testament, the first documentation did not exist until 52 CE, 20 years thereafter, and it was by a person who was demon possessed and not an eyewitness. In fact, he never cites anyone who was at the scene, never even cites his caricature Jesus. And it won't be until 75 CE that another pair of non-eyewitnesses would write Mark and Luke. So there is nothing in the Christian New Testament that is even remotely close to this kind of thing where Yahowah says, write it down. But that's the nature of it. And look at Islam, it went generations as an oral text. It's just vastly inferior to Yahowah's means of communication. Now, I said that recently it's possible for the oral communication to be equally valid, equally sustainable, equally distributable, verifiable with the written text, because now it is retained in the cloud throughout the world and retrievable at your beck and call on your smartphone or your tablet or on a computer, even your television. And it can be accompanied, as we do with all of our shorts, with a written text. And you can even have a audio to text function with closed captions on anything that I have to say. And you can look up what I'm reading. When I cite Yahowah's testimony, I'm citing it from one of the books I've written. And in this case, this is Yahowah, Volume 5, Qatsyr Harvest. And so you can go there and read everything that I'm saying and validate it for yourself. And now with the distribution that is possible through these various social media channels of the video presentations, you gain, because you can listen to it anywhere. You can see my expressions. You can hear my tone of voice. There's so much more that is communicated than just the words themselves. And you can repeat and replay whatever you wish to at any time that is convenient for you. But until very recently, the spoken word had very little value apart from those who were in the immediate audience. And even for them, they had no record of it. And the moment it was said, most of it went one through it in one ear and out the other. So Yahowah asked Yirmiah to write all these words down. And it was for Asher because they lead to the proper path to get the most out of life. And that this was what Yahowah, Debar El Ata, he would be speaking to you, Yisrael, and Yahudem about. And Yahowah wanted a permanent record to be documented. And that is essential for prophecy, because for prophecy to be proven, there must be a extant written record that precedes the event that was forecast by a considerable number of years. And with all of Yahweh's prophets, we have that, particularly because of the Dead Sea Scrolls, where we have verification that this was written and even copied centuries before the events that they foretold play out in our time. And it is prophecy that proves that Yahowah exists as a being unconstrained by time, and that he is able to convey our future and our past, not only proving his existence, but validating the fact that he inspired this text and that we can trust it. Okay, because indeed, behold, a time is coming. So this is about a future occasion. It's not about the time that the prophet was speaking, which was prior to the Babylonian conquest of Yehuda and the hauling away of the Jews into Babylonian captivity. This was about a future time when God was going to return and restore the property and possessions taken during the oppression of my people. That began to occur in 1948, when the state of Israel was reestablished after it had been attacked and all but destroyed, even renamed by the vicious Emperor Hadrian. But it was not all of Israel, still isn't, wasn't all of even Jerusalem, still isn't. And Israel had to fight wars to retain it, which is not Yahowah giving it back. 1948, 1967, 1973. And they're still fighting wars to retain it, and are about ready to open up the heart of Israel and give it to the Muslims that wish to kill them as part of the two-state dissolution. So what we're talking about here is when Yahowah actually gives Israel back after so many people have tried to take their lives and their property from them. You'll also notice that it is a time of oppression, and the oppressors to Israel after Imperial Rome was the Roman Catholic Church, and then the Muslims, and then the Ottoman Muslims, and then you go to the viciousness, really, of the Holy Roman Empire and the viciousness of the Third Reich, and now back to Muslims and Marxists again, all of which have oppressed God's people. Christianity being the worst for the longest period of time, only surpassed now by Islam. And you will also note that God's people aren't Christians. God's people not defined by a church. God's people not Gentiles. God's people, Yisrael and Yehudah. This is the end. There can be no truth to the Christian New Testament when it is based on the idea of stealing all of the promises that God made to Yisrael and Yehudah to give it to Gentiles and their church, when God announces that his people, even in the end, are Yisrael and Yehudah. That means that Paul and company lied. If you believe them, shame on you. You're a nincompoop. This is declares Yahowah, and then I will return. So Yahowah is saying that he's going to return. That means that Jesus is not returning. There is no second coming of Jesus if Yahowah is the one who is coming. And since there is no mention of Yahowah in the Christian New Testament, it wasn't inspired by Yahowah. So you can figure out what spirit did inspire the Christian New Testament, as well as the Quran, where you will also not find a Yahowah. But Yahowah says that he is returning, and he is returning his people, and he's bringing them back for the benefit of the relationship. And this is the land that he gave to their fathers. It belongs to Israelites and to Yehudim, and they're going to receive it as an inheritance. Returning to Debarim, the plural of Debar words, these are the words, Asher, which reveal the way. Guess what name comes up again? Boy, you have to be a really busy little bastard to erase Yahweh's name from his testimony as often as he used it in his testimony. So who are you going to trust? Yahweh, who constantly cites his own name in his own revelation about himself and his people, with his name actually emblazoned in the name of his people? Or are you going to trust the rabbis who erased it? Do you think the rabbis created the universe? Do you think the rabbis conceived life? Do you think the rabbis are the reason that we have these prophetic witnesses? You think the rabbis can save you? So when it comes to a wholesale disagreement between Yahweh and the rabbis, like his name, what chance is there that the rabbis are right? And since they're obviously wrong, why do you trust them? These are the words which, to reveal the way, Yahweh spoke concerning, there it goes once again, three religions. Judaism, because they think everything is for them, as in the practitioners of Judaism. They don't even, in most cases, don't even identify with the state of Israel, as in the case of the Haredim. They won't fight to defend Israel. They're parasites of Israel. But it's concerning Israel, which means the Quran is false, which means that the Christian New Testament is false. And to Yahudah. Yahudah is a compound of Yahweh's name and Dod's name. It means Yahweh's beloved. This is what, there's that name again, Yahweh conveyed as we heard the sounds of concern over the terrorists and terrorism. That is what is happening in Israel now. It's happening around the world to Jews, and it's only going to get worse. As a result of carving a Islamic state of terrorism out of the heart of Israel under the guise of this two-state dissolution and the blood libel and ethnic slur of Palestine, terrorism is going to increase at levels heretofore unknown in the world. And so God's fully aware of what his people have endured and are going to endure over the time of Jacob's troubles. And so it will be during this time, God says, of terrorists and terrorism. And finally, during this period of the time of Jacob's troubles, things are going to be so bad, there's going to be no prospects for reconciliation or peace. There really isn't now. When the leftists in Israel say, get the hostages back at any price, all they're doing is signing their own suicide note. When the Americans pretend that they're doing a service to Israel when they offer the return of hostages for concession from the devil, they are essentially killing Israel. There are no prospects for peace now because not one Israelite in a million is willing to hold Israel accountable, not Israel, Islam accountable for what happened on October 7th, what happened on 1948, 67, 73. They just don't have any clue Hamas, Hezbollah, the Muslim Brotherhood, Egypt, Syria, Jordan, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, are simply symptoms of the primary foe of God's people, Islam. Alas, assuredly at this time, it's going to be so different. There has never been anything similar to it. It is the time of Jacob's troubles. And yet from it, he, Jacob, representing Israel, will be liberated and saved. Yirmiyah 37. This is painful for me because it means that I don't do a very good job. Because it means many Jews are going to die, probably two. In fact, not probably. We're told 2 out of every 3. Because so many Jews are going to be tortured by Muslims and abducted by them, terrorized by them, murdered by them, mutilated by them. You see, in this regard, I am the world's foremost expert on Islam. I know Muhammad, Allah, the Quran, the Hadith, the first Muslims, the formation of the Islamic religion better than anyone on earth. I know just how savage it is. I know how deadly it is, how deceitful, how damning, how demonic Islam is. I've written 5 volumes, 4,200 pages of documented evidence proving that Allah was modeled after Satan, that Muhammad was a sexual pervert and a ruthless, terrorizing mass murderer and thief, and that Islam is a death cult. I was the first to reorder the Quran chronologically and to set it into the context of Muhammad's life using the Hadith so that the Quran could be understood. And when you understand the Quran, it's like demonic vomit. It's the most deceitful, disgusting, immoral, anti-Semitic, deadly book ever written. It is literally infinitely worse than Mein Kampf. So I know the monster that's going to prey on God's people. And I know that it's going to be so much more savage than was 10/7, which was the single most savage act in the last 2,000 years. And I know that Jews are going to suffer from the Marxist Muslim alliance that is now plaguing the world with their calls for genocide, their victim shaming, their profound ignorance and grotesque immorality. And yet I spend 5-6 hours every day posting away on Facebook and on X and doing this YAHOWAH blog, even with the help of the shorts and introducing them, to minimize the carnage, to tell Israel that you need to stop fighting against the symptom of Hamas and recognize the problem is Islam, and resolve this using words wielded wisely as opposed to bombs and bullets. You're making a bad situation worse, and continuing to do the same thing and expect a different outcome is not only insane, it is suicidal for Israel. I know your future. I know what Donald Trump and America are going to do to you, what the EU is going to do to you, what Muslims are going to do to you. And I feel powerless to stop it. No one has taken greater personal risk or devoted more time to exposing and condemning your primary foe, Islam. No one has successfully, prior to myself, demonstrated that it was rabbis that made Islam possible. Without them selling Talmud stories to Muhammad, the Quran doesn't exist. I know that rabbis have been more disastrous to the survival of Israel than even Muhammad, Allah, and Muslims. I'm also the first to prove that Jesus never existed, that he was a crude counterfeit created by Paul in 52 CE based upon taking a truth and corrupting it for his purpose. And that truth was the Messiah, the Son of God, though David came in 33 CE, and he was crucified by the Romans, fulfilling Passover. All the rest is identity theft, counterfeiting, robbing Yahweh, Dod, and Yisrael by the promotion of this vicious myth that not only robs everything from God's people and hides the most profound truth in the universe, but promotes a blood libel against God's people, demeaning and dehumanizing them. I know more about this than anyone who's ever lived, and have written the 5 volumes of Twistianity to prove it to you and to show you what you lost under that religious rubbish. So I have taken the time to disprove your 4 primary foes. Marxism, because I understand economics and because I understand debate and reason. I am a foremost authority on dispelling the myths of the socialists, the progressives, the woke, the cancel culture types, the Marxists that have served as the pimps for the Muslims who want to perpetrate genocide on Jews. I know Islam better than anyone who has ever lived. I know why Christians are so anti-Semitic and why Jews were persecuted for 1,800 years and why the Holocaust happened, because of my understanding of Christianity exceeds anyone. And even with those 13 books disproving those 3 religions, and all of the work I have done to discredit Marxism and wokeism and cancel culture and socialists and communists, progressives, it's not enough to save Israel. Well, I will save the remnant of Israel by all of it, but I would hope for so much more. And then there's 25 books that I've written over the past 24 years, sharing the insights from the Torah, the whole picture of the Torah and the prophets, and what they reveal to us about who Yahweh is, what he's offering, what he expects in return, and how he made everything possible for us, how we capitalize upon it. Thousands upon thousands of profound insights unheralded previously, all for you. And I've offered them in every which way that is possible to make them known to you. And yet, sadly, it's going to take 2/3 of you dying, and a situation that is worse than has ever been experienced by anyone in all of human history for you to come to your senses. I so much want you to accept what God is offering without suffering through that. And I presented it as clearly, as boldly, as verifiably as is humanly and divinely possible. And I will keep on doing so to my last breath. But Israel, it didn't have to be this way. You've made it this way. And its consequence is just unfathomably painful. I'm pained for my God. I'm pained for his beloved Son. I'm pained for you. And yet none of us have been able to get your attention heretofore. So you have no one to blame but yourself. Alas, oi, assuredly, Kai. This time, ha, yom, ha, hu, will be so different, Gadol, that there has never been anything similar to it. Men and Kamol, hu. It is the time of Jacob's troubles. Eth, Sarah, hu, la Jacob. It is the period of Israel's anguish and distress, of Jacob's adversity, when the nation is narrowed, reduced in size, oppressed, and in dire straits by vicious foes. We are told by the prophet Yeshayah, a man that spoke just a matter of years before Yirmiyahu, that the timing of this period of Israel's troubles would commence on Shabuah, which is 7 years. It means 7 years prior to Yahweh's return with Dod. And that means the Shabat of May 22nd, 2026. Yeshayah also said it just prior to this time, a state of terror will be carved out of the heart of Israel, making Israel indefensible. What follows is the time of Jacob's troubles. It lasts 7 years. It concludes on Towrah in 2033. And that is when he, Jacob, representing Israel, will be liberated and saved. That is my joy. This is sadness and joy. I'm sad that you're going to go through this. My joy is that you will survive it. Not all of you. Actually, a tiny fraction of you. But all who survive it will have survived it because of Yada Yahowah, because of the Yahowah blog, because of what Elia and I will share with you, because of what the sacrifice of the red heifer, the Adamah Parah, this bloody red man of the earth who is productive, will have sacrificed for you. So alas, oi, assuredly this time will be so different that there has never been anything similar to it. It is the time of Jacob's troubles. Oh, I pound away on X and on Facebook conveying this. As bad as it is now, and it's worse than any time in world history right now, it's going to get worse than the Holocaust, and soon. And while you will survive it, it's only a remnant of Israel that will survive it, and those who survive are going to enter the 1,000-year celebration of Sukkah, where we return to the garden. And it will happen on that day, prophetically declares Yahweh, that name again, of the vast array of spiritual implements, Saba, that I will break the yoke, this means of control and manipulation, from upon your neck, and I will pull off and tear away your bonds and shackles. Those who are illegitimate and unauthorized, those falsely claiming authority, who are foreigners advocating that which is improper, they will no longer make him serve their interests. Yirmiyahu 37 and 38. Yes, this day will occur because Yahweh has issued a prophecy pertaining to it. And Yahweh is really, really good at this prophecy stuff. Thousands of them, all of them fulfilled exactly as he foretold, as will be this one. The most controlling human endeavor of all time is religion. It comes in a variety of different flavors. It is on occasion, in fact, typically intermixed with, commingled with, institutionalized with politics, such that you have cleric and king, such that you have this integration of religion and politics and have ultimate control over the people. And for most of human history, dissent, rebellion was met with intense terror, torture of the individual who dared say, no, what you're doing is incorrect, inappropriate, and immoral. In fact, in an Islamic country, if you were to criticize the immorality of that death cult, you would be immediately put to death and tortured in the process. In Marxist Europe today, you stand up and tell the truth, you are immediately incarcerated, and there are very long prison terms. We'll soon have that in America. That is where the world is going. And so to break the yoke, the means of control and manipulation, Yahowah has to oppose and rid the world of religion and then of politics. These are things that Yahowah detests. There's nothing God hates more than religion, goddamn religion. And second unto it would be politics. If you are a MAGA and you're saying, God bless America, Donald Trump, he is God's chosen one for this time, you are absolutely annoying. You're incredibly stupid. You're ignorant. You're irrational. And you should shut up. The fact is, God hates religion. He hates politics. I can tell you for certain, because I've read Yeshaya 17 and 18, he despises Donald Trump. And he's issued a woe to the nation that is going to betray Israel. God says, I'm going to tear away that yoke and your bonds and your shackles, the shackles and the bonds of religion, of politics, of militarism, of the caste economic system that is so pervasive and has been part of every culture until quite recently. It wasn't until the American experience eliminated the caste system. And then Europe followed suit, but the caste system, it was part of every civilization. There was no upward mobility. There was no free will, no opportunity. That's why it's just so utterly stupid when the wokists and the cancel culture pretend that America is somehow harboring the upward movement of individuals based upon their skin color. When in the long history of humankind, we have 6,000 years of human civilization to study. America, for all of its foibles, is the single best opportunity for minorities and those without to achieve and to succeed, and to have no limits placed on their upward mobility. There has never been a society in the history of humankind as open, free, and beneficial in this regard. And so those who speak against it as progressives, you just shake your head and say, how could you be this ignorant, this irrational, this stupid? Those who are illegitimate and unauthorized, God speaking directly again to the popes, the imams, and the rabbis. Those who claim God's authority or political authority. From his view, they are illegitimate and they're unauthorized when they claim just the opposite, that they're falsely claiming authority. They are foreign to him. They advocate that which is improper. And therefore, his people, when he returns, will no longer serve their interests. And that is because they're gone. As we enter the millennial celebration of Sukkah, not a single religious person will survive. Not one from Judaism, Christianity, Islam, Hinduism. No political mantra, no MAGAs, no progressives. It is a world free of those things, just as were the conditions previously in Eden. Instead, they will serve with Yahowah. Remember when Yahweh was telling Pharaoh that let my people go because they're going to go off and work with me. They're going to serve with me. You know what Yahweh calls Moshe and Dod? The ones who work with me and serve with me. They're his Ebed. Do you know what Yahweh told Adam? We're going to work in the garden together. God loves work. Abad is the Hebrew word for work. Those who are going to work with me. If you want to be part of eternity, you can leave your bonbons in the freezer. It's about doing things together, achieving things together, building things together, accomplishing something together. God wants us to work together. Working is a noble pastime. It builds character. It builds value. It fills our lives with purpose. I've devoted mine to working with Yahweh these past 24 years. And I will work with him throughout all eternity. He occasionally updates his instructions, and we go and do what he has asked. I have long stopped questioning him, worrying about what I'm supposed to do. He tells me what he wants, and I do it. That doesn't mean I'm not thinking. I am. I'm exceedingly cerebral. Doesn't mean I don't have free will. I do. I just choose to do what he wants done. And it works out really well. Instead, they will serve with and work with Yahweh, their God. And with, oh my goodness. Didn't see that one coming. I translated this quite some time ago. And when we go into these things, I like not to prepare in advance. I like to see the words as they materialize before our eyes. And that way that the insights and the emphasis that I can share with you is fresh, and that it is a bit raw and edgy and extemporaneous, and therefore exceedingly real. So let's sneak up on that one again. Instead, they will work with Yahweh, their God, and with Dod, their king and counselor, whom to reveal the way to the benefits of the relationship I will raise up and establish for them. Yirmiah 39. Goodbye, Christianity. Goodbye, Islam. Sayonara, Judaism. I don't know if sayonara is appropriate for Judaism, but nonetheless, Japanese Judaism starts with a J. No, it's silly. The fact of the matter is, it is goodbye to the trash bin with that statement for those three religions. First, because we are going to work with Yahweh, not Hashem, not G-D, not the Lord. Not glorious be he. We're going to work with Yahweh, and you can't find a single goddamn rabbi who will actually say his name. You can't even get Jews who are cultural Jews to say his name. And if you don't know his name, you can't be working with him. So, as a requirement to even having the opportunity to be part of this equation, you got to know and use and love and proclaim Yahweh's name. You've got to recognize Yahweh is God. Instead, they will, instead of religion, instead of politics, instead of the things that are controlling, instead, they're going to work with Yahweh, their God, and with Dod. What does that mean? If they're going to work with Yahweh and Dod, that Yahweh and Dod are a team, aren't they? That Yahweh and Dod work together, don't they? That Yahweh is bringing Dod back, isn't he? And that means there is no unnamed Messiah that is going to be in the future. There's no multiple Messiahs in the future. That means there's no Jesus and the second coming. It means that Jesus was not the Christ. It means that Jesus is not the returning king. It says that Dod is their king. Dod is king forevermore. Yahweh is bringing Dod back, and it's not the second time, it's the third time. The third. Because the second time that Yahweh brought the nephesh soul of Dod back and put it into a Bashar body was to fulfill Passover in 33 CE, 1,000 years after Dod wrote to the Psalms about how he would be crucified, fulfilling Passover. Anointed 3 times with 3 lives, called the Son of God 3 times with 3 lives. Dod is the returning king. If you don't like that, then you are not going to be part of his family. When he returns, you aren't going to survive his return. If you don't not only like it, love it, celebrate it, exclaim it, appreciate it, capitalize upon it. So now you have 2 statements here. One statement with combination of verbs, serve with, a title, king, and 2 names that tell you that Judaism is false. Christianity is false. Islam, of course, is false. God's name is Yahweh. It's his one and only name. If you don't know his name, you do not know him. He wants us to work with him and with Dod, our king, whom to reveal the way to the benefits of the relationship. Yahweh is saying, I will raise up and establish for them. God is bringing his son back. Powerful, transformational, absolutely total and complete proof that Judaism belongs in the scrap bin, that it never should have been. And that if you cling to it, you are sacrificing your soul. You are in opposition to Yahweh. You are in opposition to Dod. And to be a Christian, you have to be a nincompoop. To think that God says, I'm coming back with Dod, he's the king, and that somehow it was appropriate for Peter, Paul, Mark, and Luke to rob Dod of his identity and slap it on a imaginary Jesus, call him the Christ, and claim that he's the one that's coming back, when God says exactly the opposite, and you actually claim that these prophets spoke for your God, and yet God is just absolutely destroying the credibility of your religion. So you're going to be a Christian, you have to live in complete discord with the truth. Then Jacob, which would be the rest of Israel, he's the father of the 12 tribes. My co-worker, you will have nothing to fear. Yep. When Dod returns, Dod is a really, really good defender of Israel. And when he returns with Yahweh, all opposition to Israel and to Yahweh and to Dod disappears instantly. So there's nothing left for Jacob to fear. So we've gone from the time of Jacob's troubles to nothing for Jacob to fear, with one change: Dod's return. That would be pretty important, wouldn't it? Then Jacob, my co-worker, you will have nothing to fear. Yahweh reveals well in advance of it occurring. Nor will you be confused or dismayed as you are now by Judaism, by Christianity, by the Marxists in your midst. You will no longer be confused or dismayed. You won't be lashing out at Hamas like they're defeating them somehow is possible and that it's going to make your nation survivable, when in fact they're nothing but a symptom of a much, much more pervasive problem. You're not going to be dismayed or confused by the lies of Christianity, so that you will recognize who the Messiah and Son of God actually is. You will know who was really crucified. Israel, because behold, I will save you. Yasha, I will deliver you from being distant and alienated. What does that mean, Israel? What does that mean? I will save you from being distant and alienated. Does that mean you are currently distant and alienated, and that God's going to resolve that? And because he's saying that he's going to resolve the fact that you are currently distant and alienated, doesn't that mean that you're complicit in the time of Jacob's troubles? Doesn't it mean you brought this on yourself? Now you understand my anguish and wanting to get your attention so that you're no longer estranged and alienated, so that you do not bring the time of Jacob's troubles on yourself, so that you can return to Yahweh and be part of the Shabuah harvest along with us, and that you can save your loved ones over this 12 months and preclude them from suffering during the time of Jacob's troubles. By God saying these things, you are currently estranged. And this only ends in the immediate proximity to Dod's return. Along with your offspring from the realm of their exile and captivity. From the realm of their exile and captivity is also a telling sign. It's explained previously in Yashayah in the 17th chapter, where Yahweh says, I'm going to go and I'm going to pull all of this remnant of Yisrael. And he lists all these places around the world, including the United States, that he's going to remove them and bring them back home. And then in Zechariah, a prophet after Yirmiah, God says that he is going to deploy 4 chariots, and the purpose of one of those 4 chariots, the white one, is to pick up over a 12-hour period every remnant of Yisrael, every surviving Jew that is no longer religious or political and is open to being reconciled with Dod and accepting of Yahweh's name, and bring them all to Yisrael, at which time the red heifer will be sacrificed on their behalf. That's what's going to happen. It's wonderful, isn't it? But think of all you have to go through between now and then to get there. Don't have to. Will. Shouldn't. Don't want you to. I have a year to convince as many of you as possible to avoid it. Shub is the next verb. I spent considerable time in our last program dedicated also to the Shabuah harvest and our celebration of the last Shabuah before the harvest. Speaking to you about Shub, it is the single most important verb relative to the restoration of Israel. Israel, you have to Shub to Yahweh. You have to change and return to Yahweh for him to return to restore you. It is literally Shub for Shub, or no Shub for you. And Jacob, speaking of Yisrael, a synonym for Yisrael, will change and return. Shub will turn around and come back, recovered and restored, transformed, and then be at peace and put at ease with no one troubling him. Yirmiah 30:10. This is God's solution. It unfortunately comes at the end of the time of Jacob's troubles. It comes upon the return of Dowd. But if you survive to this point, you have a future. I'm just sad for your past. For I am with you at this moment, prophetically declares Yahweh, to liberate and to save you. Indeed, I will engage an act to bring an end to all of the foreign nations and institutions. Bakol Hagoyam, all of the countries, entities, and each of the foreign peoples of conflicting cultures who are brought together by religion or politics, among whom I have scattered and dispersed you by name and reputation, and you will be the exception, because I will not act in such a way to cause you to fail or perish. Indeed, I will provide instructions for you in the way to exercise good judgment regarding the means to resolve disputes, laha misvat, on how to be judgmental, on how to be discerning and discriminating, such that you are found innocent and are not punished. And I will not banish you or leave you destitute. Yirmiah 30:11. Yahweh walked away from Israel during the Exodus. You told him to go away and shut up. And you became so belligerent that God said, oh, yeah, no problem with that. I agree. You guys are no fun to be around anyway. So I'm out of here. And then through the prophet Hosea, as I shared in the last program, Yahweh said, I'm divorcing you. But God is going to come back, and it's all based on shub. You shub, he shubs. And so if you want to see Yahweh's return, if you want to benefit from Yahweh's return, if you want to enjoy Yahweh's presence in your life, if you want to enter Shamaim and live forever with your king, Dowd, quite frankly, what you need to do is to shub. So it says that Jacob will change and return. And as a result, he will finally be at peace and at ease with no one troubling him. We're entering the millennial celebration of Sukkah, which is a return to the conditions that existed in Eden. No religion to control, no politics to pester, no militants to kill. Peace, no troubles. For I am with you. At that time, Yahweh is going to return. Shub for shub. You shub, he shubs. He's telling you a remnant of you are going to shub. You're going to change. You're going to return. Yahweh is going to restore you. He's going to liberate and save you. He is with you because, well, even though you were the chosen people, even though you didn't choose God in return, even though he left you because you were miserable to be around, he did not replace you. And finally, you're going to replace all of the religion and false politics and false gods and false teaching and false rabbis and politicians in your life. And you're going to return to Yahweh. And he's going to return to you. And he's going to liberate and save you. La Yasha Ata, providing freedom, salvation, deliverance, and prosperity. Yahweh will engage and act all of that 3.5 year period upon Yada's and Eliah's return to the Temple Mount and to Jerusalem is going to be a time where the supernatural is going to be natural. God is going to do many things, including lifting up a scrolling banner that is these programs and the books that you see written behind me. But even before that, 24 years ago now, Yahweh engaged and chose his Choder, his Nachri, his sons Bashar, Harold, imbued him with his spirit to speak to you, to learn the truth, and then to share it with you. And this is the way that Yahweh has engaged and acted. And there will be nothing that he's ever done that will be as demonstrable as what he's going to accomplish on Towrah with the sacrifice of the red heifer. If you want to know a little bit of what that's like, read Numbers 19, read the beneficiary presentation in Numbers 5, and then read the story of Eliah and his battle against the religious and political in Israel, which would have occurred 40 Yobel, which is 2,000 years, 888 more years back in time. And you'll know exactly what's going to happen in the future. Indeed, I will engage and act and bring an end to all foreign nations and institutions. There will be no Goyim nations. There will be some Goyim left, but no countries, no religious institutions, no Roman Catholicism, no Islam, no United States of America, no Russia, no China. There'll be some Chinese, be a few Americans. Population of the world at this time is mostly going to be Yehud, but there will be a number of Goyim who move into the millennial celebration of Sukkah as workers. Work being a noble thing, but having the opportunity to participate and contribute. And serve the Israelites as they are returned to the land and with all of their possessions. And of course, there will be those that were harvested during Shabat and Towrah, although many of them now will be out exploring the universe and having a grand old time in dimensions beyond the 3 that we are experiencing here on Earth into the 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th dimension. Among whom I have scattered and dispersed you by name and reputation. If you were a Yehud, it is by name. If you are Yisrael, it is by reputation. Scattered and dispersed means that you were hauled away from Israel for bad behavior. And whether it's been the diaspora or it was the Assyrians hauling away the 10 tribes or the Babylonians, Judah. God says, I'm going to gather you all. And there's the story of how this is done specifically at this very moment, presented in Zechariah 6. It's an amazing story of the 4 chariots that are deployed at this time. And God says, that remnant of these people, you're not going to perish. No. Your foes will, but not you. The story does end happily ever after. If you can make it to the end, it's happily ever after. If you join us on the Shabuah harvest, it's happier before the end, and still absolutely forever. Instead, I will provide instructions for you. You'll find those instructions provided in these books behind me. Yahweh refers to them as the Nesh, the sign that we have collaborated on and we have written on your behalf. And now he has asked that I provide the instructions for you by the Yahweh blog, which we are doing as well. There are very serious and important instructions from God. In fact, Torah doesn't mean law. It means instructions and teaching, guidance and direction. And he's going to provide these instructions in the way to exercise good judgment regarding the means to resolve disputes. Laha Mishvat. Mishvat is a compound word, as are so many in Hebrew. The M-I is from my. It means to ponder, to question the implications of something. And Shavat is to exercise good judgment, to make sound, rational decisions, to resolve disputes. It's a powerful term. Disputes with God are resolved through the Moed Mikre, Pesach, Matzah, Bakonim, Shabuah, Towrah, and Kippurim. You exercise good judgment regarding God by first having good information about God, and that begins with reading these books I have written for you under the Yada Yahowah name, to know Yahweh. You have to first accumulate the knowledge, And then you consider that information so that you understand it, and then you can apply it and make sound decisions regarding it. That's what God has provided through all of these books. That has been the purpose of my life. And such that you are found innocent and not punished. And that is really profound. Christians want to be saved, and they have come up with this myth that you are saved through belief. Now, belief is the residue of not knowing. So it's the most inane thing in the world to say it would cause salvation, because faith is, again, fills the gap when you don't know. Belief is for those that don't understand. According to God, there is no salvation through faith or through belief. And matter of fact, God doesn't even use the term salvation in this sense. When he speaks of Yasha, it's mostly deliverance, and it's deliverance from your guilt. And so how is your religious and political guilt delivered away from you, taken from you? And the answer to that is matzah. When Dod in his second of 3 lives finished offering his bashar corporeal body as the Passover lamb, his nefesh soul carried the guilt of every covenant member into Sheol to deposit it there, never to be seen again. And so God has made us innocent so that there is no sentencing or judgment on our behalf, so that we are not judged. We don't need to be saved because we have nothing to be saved from. We appear perfect in God's eyes. It's a brilliant plan. And that's what he is speaking of here, because he is not going to leave us destitute. He's coming back for his people. He's going to see to it that we are never forced to live elsewhere again or lack anything in our lives. Jeremiah 30:11. Yahweh wanted his prophet to record everything he revealed in writing. That way, nothing would be forgotten, misconstrued, or altered over time. And by doing so, we're afforded access to everything God shared as if we were there, as if he were talking directly to us, because he is. In addition, with the written account, Yahweh proves his inspiration, because we have access to manuscripts which predate the events they foretold. God proves his existence in this way, and he demonstrates that he inspired the text that we are reading. There's no other source of information about God that has either of these two things. There are no prophecies in the Talmud. There are no prophecies in the Zohar. There are no prophecies in the Christian New Testament. There's no prophecies in the Quran that are accurately fulfilled. Not one in any of those texts. And even when they have the pretense of them, like through Revelation, it's just a bad job of plagiarizing. They plagiarize the prophets of Yahweh. And so the only place you can go to have valid prophecies that not a single one is wrong, they're all detailed and specific, and they're all fulfilled exactly as God said, is his prophets, his Torah, his Mizmor, his Mashal, his writings. This is it, sum total of them. And it's exceedingly powerful because it proves God's existence, that he exists outside of the constraints of time, and that he authored what we're reading, because no one else can see our future in our past and report our future before it actually plays out in our ordinary flow of time. God is not demanding that this future happens. He's not predestining it. He is simply saying, I have witnessed your future. I've seen the sum total of all of your decisions, mostly bad. And this is where they lead. And I'm telling you that this is where they lead. And then what I'm going to do thereafter in advance of all of these things occurring, so that you're prepared, so that you know that I authorized these texts, that I inspired these prophets, and that I exist. He's announcing that he is the God of Israel. And while that does not eliminate other ethnicities from embracing God, it means that the Israelites cannot be excluded from those who have access to them, because God is focused on Israel. It means that no other group, such as Christians, can be prioritized over the chosen people. Further, Israel can be self-identifying and describe those who have chosen to be among the individuals who engage and endure with God. Unless we forget, Yahweh thought so highly of Sarah, of Abraham's wife, and of Yishak's mother, that he branded his people with their identity, Yisrael, with her name set between Y, serving as a contraction of Ish and demonstrating the very hand of God, and El, the Almighty's title. It's interesting that both Yisrael is got Sarah's name in it, and Yahud, from which you get Jew, is Yahweh's and Dod's name. And speaking of Yisrael, the third point Yahweh made in this pronouncement is that her land and that which belongs to her, and that which would include, of course, this very special place alongside God, is going to be restored. There'll be no Palestinians. There will be no Fakistinians. Good riddance. That myth died hard. Fourth, Yahweh not only calls Yisrael and Yehudah my people, he reminds us that Yehudim and Yisrael were chosen for a very special relationship, one that gives meaning to life. And as a result, they are his heirs, inheriting what he, as God, has to offer, which is more than the entire universe. This prophecy is addressing a time when terrorists will attack Yehudim. And that did not happen, at least in Israel, until quite recently, affirming this conclusion that while the Assyrians abused Israel, but not Yehudah, and the Romans and the Greeks and the Muslims abused Judah, Yahud, but not all of Yisrael, that we're talking about a very specific time. Plus, the Romans were savages, but they were not terrorists. The Assyrians were savages militarily, but they were not terrorists. The Babylonians, the same thing would be held as true. It's not really until Muslims that the religion breeds terrorists. The armies of the Greeks and the Romans legions took their orders from ruthless despots, but their soldiers were highly disciplined fighters. It would not be until Islam was conceived that terror would become the pervasive signature tactic of Israel's most savage foe. And therefore, God is addressing what is occurring today and will transpire tomorrow when there are no prospects of peace. Sixth, although he will repeat this warning through the prophet Yoel, this is the lone occasion where Yahweh says that the situation he is forecasting will be unlike any other throughout the whole of time. And considering how horrifically the Philistines, Egyptians, Assyrians, Greeks, Romans, Catholics, Muslims, Europeans, Nazis, Muslims again, and now progressive Marxists have treated Jews, that's an amazing claim. One that should garner Israel's undivided attention. The decade between 10/7/23 and 10/7/33, and particularly the 7 years between May 22nd of 2026 and October 24th of 2033, will be unprecedented in vicious hostility towards Jews and Israel. This is simply tomorrow's news yesterday. The fact before they are actually delivered to you. And yet, seventh, in contrast to this dire forecast, there is the promise of a brilliant future. Yahweh will liberate his family even more convincingly and permanently than he did 3,500 years ago from Mitzrayim, the crucibles of religious and political oppression, because then he got you out and then let you go. This time, this exodus, this Yatsa from Babel, the confounding corruption caused by commingling religion and politics, he isn't going to let you go. He's going to keep you for himself forevermore. The freedom of God's people is imminent. It is against this backdrop that the Shabuah and Towrah harvests and the Kippurim homecoming are all manifest, as was the case previously. Yahweh correctly sees his people being shackled and controlled by the debilitating human contrivances of religion and politics, militants and militaries, as well as anti-Semitic conspiracies. But these bonds, they're going to be broken. And with the manipulators pulled away, their illegitimate claims against Israel and Jews will be forever extinguished, broken, shattered. So ninth, those who have chosen to participate in the covenant will be put to work serving with Yahweh and his son Dod. As it was in Eden, it will be on earth, in the company of our God, while led by our shepherd. Work according to God has value. It builds character. It enriches our lives and those of others. Yahweh finds it beneficial, and he wants us to enjoy engaging with him. It's why he calls Dod and Moshe and even myself his Ebed, his co-workers. We improve our lives and the overall experience through Abad, engaging, working. Now, 10th, there is but one name other than Yahweh's which matters. Dod. Dod is the chosen one. He is the anointed Messiah, our King, God's Son, in addition to having served as the Zeroah, the sacrificial lamb, making him our kinsman redeemer. He is returning, and his Father wants us to know and appreciate what he has accomplished. But more than this, Dod is the exemplar of Yisrael and the Bereth as well. And all that he represents will be manifest upon his arrival. And this being so, there is no room for a Mr. Christ, not in God's past or future plans. Myth. It was Dod's name and Yahweh's, which were certified in this prophecy. Should you want to be among the beneficiaries, accept and appreciate both for who they are, for what they have done. So as we transition from unimaginably bad to exceptionally good, one thing remains constant. Jacob, who is synonymous with Yisrael and the Bereth covenant, is the apple of Yah's eyes, and he will be by his side and engaged. But there is something very different this time, because there is no more confusion, which speaks to the end of religion and politics. The end of X as well. Goodbye, good riddance. Yahweh and Dod will be known. God's guidance will be treasured, and their people will no longer be estranged. At this moment and forevermore, Yahweh will be our God, and we will be his family. Dod will serve as our king. Well, Yahweh will act to make this all possible. It will not be until his people change. They must shub for his overture to even be possible. And that is our role after 3,450 years of estrangement and disengagement. We're making a difference. We're here to tell you the truth so that you accept it and shub. There is no other voice doing this for you, nor will there be any other between now and the time you need to make this decision. His purpose is your inclusion. So never forget that he had his prophet write, "Indeed, I will provide instructions for you, teaching you to make the right decision, such that you are found innocent and never lacking for anything." This was written sometime in the 7th century BCE. The Torah was revealed in the 15th century BCE. There's an 800-year gap between the two. Yahweh gave us his instructions and his teaching in the 15th century BCE. And now he's saying, I will provide instructions for you, teaching you to make the right decision prior to his return in the 8th century BCE. You're listening to them. If you go to yadayah.com, you will read them. There's no other example that exists like this. No other teaching, no other instruction, no other guidance regarding how you would go about making the right decision so that you're found innocent and lack for nothing. It is what you are hearing now. This is the fulfillment of that prophecy. And it's all being done for you. Thank you for listening. This has been a special edition of the YAHOWAH blog in the shadow of the last Shavuot harvest before it is fulfilled. Happy Shabbat to one and all.